My name is June Albright, and I was 35 years old when my son learned, in front of a backyard full of people, that some adults can smile while they hurt a child. At 3:16 on a Saturday afternoon in late April, my ex-husband's wife handed slices of birthday cake to 14 children at my son Miles' 7th birthday party. She gave one to her daughter, one to every neighbor kid, one to every child from Miles's class, and even one to a little boy whose name she had forgotten and had to ask twice. Then she skipped Miles. When my son looked up at her and asked, "Do I get one?" she tilted her head and said, "You're a guest here, Miles. Not really family." My ex-husband, Grant, stood 6 feet away beside the cooler and did not move. The blue paper crown Miles had worn in the car was bent beside my purse because Brielle had already told him it didn't match the party setup. I had a printed invitation folded in my bag, a few screenshots on my phone, and one document I still hoped I would never have to use. Before that afternoon was over, several prints would leave without saying goodbye. Grant's father would set down his glass, and Brielle would understand too late that the quiet people in the yard had been paying attention. But in that first second, all I saw was my son's face trying not to fall apart. Welcome back to the Madeline Files, where the stories are quiet until the truth finally has somewhere to stand. If you've ever been asked to keep the peace while someone else kept causing the damage, this one may stay with you. Listen closely, because this was not really about cake. It was about names, records, missed meals, a folded paper crown, and the moment a little boy stopped waiting for people to decide he belonged. I want to tell this carefully, because when people hear about a birthday party, they think the cruelty started when the candles were lit. It didn't. The party was only the first time. Brielle said the quiet part where everyone could hear it. Miles was 7 that spring, small for his age, with serious brown eyes and a habit of lining up his sneakers by the front door, even when we weren't going anywhere. He loved maps, strawberry yogurt, knock-knock jokes that made no sense, and being birthday captain at school. That was what his teacher called the child who got to carry the attendance folder down the hall on their birthday week. Miles took that job so seriously, he practiced walking with one hand flat on top of a folder, like a waiter carrying soup. I worked in the office of that same elementary school, not in his classroom, but near enough that I heard his laugh sometimes through the hallway when his class passed the copier. My title was Records Coordinator, which sounded dull to most people. It meant I handled enrollment forms, custody paperwork, emergency contacts, dismissal changes, attendance letters, immunization records, and all the little documents adults only cared about when something went wrong. Grant used to make fun of it. "You and your forms," he would say, back when we were married. "You act like a missing signature is a house fire." I never answered that the missing signature was usually how the house fire started. Grant liked life to feel easy. He liked smooth surfaces, clean explanations, and women who handled details before they reached him. When we were married, I paid the bills, bought birthday gifts for his family, scheduled the oil changes, texted his mother, packed the diaper bag, ordered the cupcakes, returned the library books, and remembered which cousin had a peanut allergy. When he forgot something, I fixed it. When he was embarrassed, I softened it. When he hurt my feelings, I explained it in a way he could live with. By the time we divorced, I had become less like his wife and more like the invisible part of his life that kept the machinery from grinding. He married Brielle 14 months later. She was beautiful in a polished way, with pale hair always clipped back, glossy nails, and an Instagram account full of words like intentional, aligned, home rhythm, and blended blessing. She had one daughter from first marriage, Sloane, who was 9 when this happened. Sloane had Grant wrapped around her finger within a month, which I didn't resent. Children deserve kindness from adults who enter their lives. I only noticed that kindness had started becoming a limited resource. Miles would come home from Grant's weekends with small comments tucked into ordinary conversation. Brielle says we don't use the white towels unless we live there all week. Or Sloane has a snack drawer but I'm supposed to ask first because my snacks come from your house. Or once, while I was washing dishes, Mom, what does resident kid mean? The plate slipped in my hand. It didn't break. I remember that because I stood there with soap running down my wrist and tried to keep my voice even. Where did you hear that? He shrugged, looking down at the little plastic of dinosaur-free socks he wore that day, the blue ones with stripes. I remember the stripes because I was looking at everything except his face. Brielle said resident kids get first pick because they're there more. I dried my hands slowly. First pick of what? Pancakes. That detail stayed with me. At the time, I told myself not to overreact. Divorce makes every house different. Adults say clumsy things. Kids misunderstand. I wrote the date in my calendar anyway, because at work I had learned something simple. When a child repeats an adult phrase that does not sound like a child, write it down. That was how the file began. Not a dramatic folder, not a plan for revenge, just dates, missed pickups, canceled weekends, text where Grant said, "Can you just keep him?" Brielle's overwhelmed. Notes from Miles's backpack. A screenshot of Brielle texting, "Please send extra snacks next time. Our groceries are planned by household need." A photo of Miles's lunchbox coming back from Grant's still full because he said he wasn't sure if he was allowed to eat the crackers there. I did not call a lawyer after every small wound. I did not march up Grant's driveway. I did what I had done for years. I absorbed, sorted, documented, and tried to protect Miles from knowing how much I noticed. Useful daughters grow into useful women if nobody stops them. That is one of the few things I know that sounds harsher than I want it to, but it is true in my case. I was raised in a house where the calmest person became the unpaid adult. My mother worked 2 jobs and cried in the laundry room. My younger brother got in trouble and got rescued. I learned to find the missing keys, sign the field trip slips, start dinner, and make everyone feel like the day was still manageable. Nobody called it a burden. They called me mature. Grant loved that part of me until it started requiring something from him. During our marriage, when Miles was a baby and I was sleeping in 2-hour pieces, Grant would say, "You're just better at this stuff." He meant bottles, appointments, daycare labels, diaper sizes, fever charts, insurance calls, and waking up before the crying got loud enough to bother him. After the divorce, he still expected it. "Can you remind me when picture day is? Can you pack his cleats? I forgot it's my weekend. Can you tell my dad the school program starts at 6? He listens to you. Can you grab a gift for Sloane's birthday and put my name on it? I'll Venmo you." At first I did. Not for Grant, for Miles. I wanted his father's house to feel steady. I wanted the adults in his life to look competent enough that he could be a child. I thought if I stayed reasonable, Grant would eventually rise to meet me there. Instead, he married someone who turned my reasonableness into a hiding place. Brielle did not yell. That was part of why people believed her. She used soft phrases that sounded mature if you did not stand close enough to see what they did. We're creating boundaries around household identity. Miles needs to understand transitions. June's anxiety can't run both homes. Grant deserves a peaceful space, too. Grant repeated her phrases within weeks. I could hear them in his texts like borrowed clothes. One Friday in February, he canceled pickup 40 minutes before school dismissal. "Brielle has a migraine. Can you keep Miles tonight?" I typed, "Of course." "Is everything okay?" He replied, "Yeah, just household overload." Household overload. I stared at those words from my desk in the school office, while the dismissal bell rang and children began pouring into the hallway with backpacks, bouncing against their shoulders. Miles appeared 3 minutes later, looking for me through the office window. He smiled when he saw me, because he liked surprise changes when they meant extra time at home. I smiled back. Then I wrote the date down. The next Monday, a form crossed my desk that made the back of my neck go cold. It was an emergency contact update request for Miles. Parents submit them all the time. New phone numbers, new babysitters, grandparents added, a step-parent authorized for pickup. Most of it is ordinary. This one had Brielle's neat block handwriting. She had listed herself as primary household contact during father's custody time. Under notes, she had written, non-household child, mother over notifies, root father communication through household parent when applicable, non-household child. I read it twice. Then I walked it to my principal, Mrs. Henson, because you do not process a custody-related change based on a step-parent's note when legal parents and court orders exist. Mrs. Henson put on her glasses, read the form, and looked up at me over the top of them. June, she said gently, do you need a copy of this for your records? I stood there with my hands flat against the edge of her desk. Yes, I said. I think I do. That was the first document I hoped I would never need. I did not tell Grant I had it, not right away. I knew exactly how that conversation would go. He would say Brielle meant well. He would say she was trying to organize communication. He would say I was making paperwork emotional, so I kept it. A week later, Raymond Whitaker called me. Raymond was Grant's father, and he had always been kind to me in a formal, slightly awkward way. He was a retired county recorder, the kind of man who polished his reading glasses with the end of his shirt and treated signatures like promises. After the divorce, he stayed in Miles's life without making me chase him. Birthday cards arrived on time. He came to school programs. He called before visiting. He never asked me to explain Grant. That day, his voice was low. June, do you have a minute? I looked around the office. It was lunchtime. The phones were quiet. I do. I was at Grant's yesterday. I waited. Miles was on the front step when I pulled up. He had his coat on. My stomach tightened. Why? Raymond exhaled through his nose. He said Brielle was cleaning and told him outside play would help the household. Reset. It was 38 degrees that afternoon. I remembered because I had sent Miles in his green coat and reminded Grant to make sure he wore gloves. How long was he out there? I don't know. Long enough that his hands were cold. I closed my eyes for 1 second. Did Grant know? He was in the garage. Of course he was. Grant loved being in the garage when feelings were happening inside the house. Raymond said, I don't think you're imagining this. Those words hit me in a place I had kept braced for years. I sat down slowly. Thank you for saying that. I should have said it sooner. There was a quiet on the line, not empty, heavy. Then he said, write things down. Dates, exact words. Don't rely on people remembering kindness they didn't show. I looked at the copier across from my desk, warm and humming, a stack of enrollment packets waiting on top. I already started. Raymond did not sound surprised. Good, he said. I'll do the same. After that, he called every few weeks. Not to gossip, not to interfere, just to tell me what he had seen. Miles eating dinner at a side table because Brielle said the kitchen table was set for the core four, meaning Grant, Brielle, Sloane, and Raymond. Miles sleeping on an air mattress in the den because Brielle's craft supplies were still in the guest room that had supposedly become his. Miles asking Raymond whether last names decided who got Christmas stockings. Each time, Raymond sounded more tired. Each time, I wrote it down. In March, Grant texted me asking if we could revisit tax year fairness because Miles benefits from both households. He had canceled 5 weekend overnights since January. I replied, we can discuss it after custody time reflects actual overnights. He sent back, you always make it about records. I almost laughed, but there was nothing funny in it. His father had spent 30 years recording property transfers for people who thought a handshake was enough until it wasn't. Grant had grown up around filing cabinets and stamped dates. Somehow he still believed records were petty when they recorded him. Miles's birthday was April 22nd, a Tuesday that year. I hosted his actual birthday at my apartment after school with his favorite tacos, a grocery store chocolate cake, and 2 friends from the building. He wore the blue paper crown I bought at a party store, the one with silver stars on the points, and kept touching it like it might float away. Grant called at 7:30 that night. Miles put him on speaker while building a small wooden bridge kit Raymond had sent him. Hey, birthday man, Grant said. Big party this weekend at our place. Miles looked at me, his whole face opened. Really? Yep. Brell's planning it. Backyard games, cake, your class friends, the whole thing. Your mom's invited too. I froze with a taco plate in my hand. Miles said, Mom can come? Grant laughed lightly. Of course. We're all adults. That was one of Grant's favorite lines. It usually meant he had created a situation where I would look unreasonable if I objected. After Miles went to bed, my phone buzzed. Brielle had started a group text with me and Grant. Hi, June. We'd love to have you attend Miles's official birthday celebration Saturday at our home. We think it would be good for Miles to see everyone together and comfortable. Cake, snacks, and goodie bags will be provided for all kids attending. Let's model healthy blended family energy. I read it twice. Official birthday celebration. All kids attending. Healthy blended family energy. I should have known then. Instead I typed, Miles is excited. What time should we arrive? Brielle replied within seconds. 2:00. Please don't bring extra food. We have everything handled. I stared at that last sentence for a long time. Please don't bring extra food. There was nothing obviously wrong with it. Plenty of hosts say that. But with Brielle, ordinary sentences often had a locked door inside them. I printed the invitation the next morning at work. Not because I expected disaster, I told myself. Because I printed everything involving custody schedules. Because paper did not disappear when someone deleted a thread. Because habit is sometimes the only warning system a woman has left. On Friday afternoon, Lena Park stopped by the office to drop off Theo's medication form. Theo was Miles's best friend, a cheerful boy with round glasses and a laugh that always arrived before the joke. Lena and I were friendly in the way school parents become friendly after enough pickup line conversations. She was a pediatric occupational therapist, practical and warm, with a canvas tote full of snacks and receipts. Theo is thrilled for tomorrow, she said. Miles, too. She paused with her hand on the counter. Can I ask something that might be none of my business? I looked up. Is this party going to be okay? I must have gone still, because she softened her voice. The invitation came from Brielle. Theo said Miles wasn't sure if his dad's house was really his party house. I don't know what that means. It just sat wrong with me. For a second, I wanted to tell her everything. The pancakes, the front step, the form, the phrase non-household child. Instead I said, I'm going because Miles wants me there. Lena nodded like that, answered more than I had said. I'll keep an eye out, she said. Not in a dramatic way, just a mom way, a mom way. I almost cried right there beside the attendance scanner. Thank you. That night, I packed Miles's gift for the party, even though it felt strange to bring a gift to a party for my own child. He wanted to take the blue crown again. It had survived his school birthday, our apartment dinner, and one night on his bookshelf. Do you think Dad will like it? He asked. I think it looks very official. He grinned and placed it carefully on the kitchen table. I folded the printed invitation into my purse. Then I added the emergency contact form copy in a plain white envelope. I hesitated before putting it in. I remember the sound of my refrigerator turning on in the quiet kitchen. I remember Miles humming in the bathroom while brushing his teeth. I remember thinking I was being too much. Then I put the envelope in anyway. Saturday was bright and windy. The kind of April day where the sun tricks you into leaving your jacket in the car, and then the breeze punishes you for believing it. Miles wore jeans, red sneakers, a navy hoodie, and the blue crown. He held it with one hand in the car so it would not blow off when we got out. Grant and Brielle lived in a pale gray house at the end of a cul-de-sac. Or at least everyone called it their house. Raymond had bought it years earlier when Grant's first business failed, and he needed a place to land. I knew Raymond still had some involvement, but I did not know the details then. Grant had always said, Dad helped with the down payment, in the vague way people describe money they do not want examined. When we pulled up, the driveway was full. There were balloons tied to the mailbox in muted colors, sage, cream, dusty blue. A rented white canopy covered half the backyard. Through the side gate, I could see folding tables with matching cloths, glass drink dispensers, little chalkboard signs, and a professional-looking cake with blue frosting waves around the bottom. Miles whispered, Whoa. I looked at him and smiled. Big day. He adjusted his crown. At the gate, Brielle appeared in a cream jumpsuit and wedge sandals, holding a clipboard. A clipboard. I almost laughed because if I had brought one, Grant would have teased me for a week. "Miles," she said brightly. She bent for a hug. Miles gave her the careful side hug he used with adults he did not fully trust. Then her eyes moved to the crown. "Oh," she said, "that's cute. We probably shouldn't wear it for photos, though." Miles touched it. "It's my birthday crown." "I know, sweetie. It's just not really the look today. We have a more cohesive setup." I waited for Grant to say, "Let the birthday boy wear his crown." He was standing by the patio with a bag of ice over one shoulder. He smiled at us and said nothing. Miles looked at me. I knelt down. "You can keep it on if you want." Brielle's smile tightened. "Of course. I'm just thinking of the pictures." Miles slowly lifted the crown off his head and handed it to me. "I'll wear it later," he said. The points had bent slightly where his fingers pressed them. I put it beside my purse on a chair near the fence. That was the first time that day Brielle took something from him and made it sound like taste. The backyard was full of children running between a beanbag toss and a rented inflatable soccer net. Parents stood in loose groups holding plastic cups. I recognized a few from school. Keisha Bell was there with her son Marcus, wearing sunglasses on top of her head and looking mildly uncertain, like she had expected a child's birthday and walked into a lifestyle photo shoot. Lena saw me from the far side of the yard and lifted her hand. Theo ran straight to Miles. "Come on," he said. "They have water balloons, but Brielle says not yet." Miles ran after him, crown forgotten for the moment. I tried to relax. Brielle had placed name tags on little craft paper goodie bags at the dessert table. I noticed them because I noticed labels. Ava, Noah, Marcus, Theo. Lily, Jackson, Emma, Harper, Caleb, Mason, Olivia, Sloan, Ben, Carter. 14. No Miles. I stood there for a moment, counting again. The way you count when your mind refuses the answer. 14 children invited besides Miles. 14 goodie bags. None for the birthday boy. Maybe his was somewhere special, I told myself. Maybe it was in the house. Maybe I was looking for pain because I knew its handwriting. I turned and saw Raymond sitting under the canopy, slightly apart from the other adults. He wore a navy cardigan despite the sun and held a glass of seltzer with a lime wedge floating at the top. Beside his chair, leaning against the table leg, was a gray legal-size envelope, not yellow, gray, thick, the kind with a string closure. He caught my eye and gave me a small nod. I walked over. "Raymond, June." He looked past me at Miles, who was laughing as Theo missed the soccer net completely. "He looks happy," Raymond said. "For now." His eyes moved to Brielle, then back to me. "Do you have your records?" My throat tightened. "In my purse." "Good." I lowered my voice. "Raymond, what is in that envelope?" He looked down at it. "Something I hope I don't need." That was all he said. I could have asked more. I did not. Across the yard, Brielle clapped her hands and announced the first game. Children ran to line up. Grant handed out little ribbon bracelets in 2 colors for teams. Miles ended up at the back of the line. I watched Brielle adjust the children for a photo. She moved Sloan to the center, one arm around her daughter's shoulders. Miles stood 2 spots away, half hidden behind a taller boy. "Miles," I called gently. "Can you step forward a little?" Brielle turned. "Actually, we're balancing heights." Grant looked at the ground. Lena moved before I did. "Theo, trade with Miles," she called. "You're blocking half the county back there." Theo, bless him, spun around and swapped places without question. Miles ended up visible. Brielle's mouth pinched, but the photographer parent already had the phone up, so she let it go. It was a small thing. Small things matter when a child is being taught to disappear. For the next hour, the party looked normal if you wanted it to. Children shouted. Balloons knocked against the fence. Someone spilled punch near the patio, and Grant threw paper towels over it with the confidence of a man who had never actually cleaned a spill. Brielle moved through the yard accepting compliments. "You did all this yourself?" "Oh, you know me," she said. "I just wanted it to feel intentional." "Blended families can be so hard," another mother said. Brielle touched her chest. "We work very hard to make everyone feel included." I was standing close enough to hear it. So was Keisha. Keisha's eyebrows lifted behind her sunglasses just a little. At 3 o'clock, Brielle announced cake. Miles ran to me first. "Can I wear my crown now?" "Absolutely." I picked it up. One silver star had folded inward. I straightened it with my thumb and placed it on his head. He stood very still while I adjusted it. "You look official," I said. He smiled, but he was watching Brielle. She saw the crown and looked away. The children gathered around the cake table. The cake was beautiful. Too beautiful for a child's backyard party, honestly. White frosting, blue waves, a little fondant sailboat, and a topper that read, "7 looks good on you." Not Miles turned 7. Just 7 looks good on you. I noticed that too. Grant stood behind Miles while everyone sang. He placed his hands on Miles's shoulders, and for one small moment, I let myself believe he remembered. Miles blew out the candles on the second try. Everyone clapped. Then Brielle took over. She cut the cake carefully, wiping the knife between slices. Sloane got the first piece. I told myself not to react. Some households do that. Maybe she was serving by age. Maybe Sloane was helping. Then Ava got a piece. Noah, Marcus, Theo, Lily, Jackson, Emma, Harper, Caleb, Mason, Olivia, Ben, Carter. A toddler whose mother had wandered over from next door. Miles stood at the end of the table, hands folded in front of him, crown crooked, waiting with the patience of a child who had been made to practice, waiting. Brielle started handing out goodie bags. Sloane took hers and looked inside. Theo got his, Marcus got his, every child got one. Miles still had no plate. I stepped forward. Grant moved at the same time. He reached toward the stack of plates. His hand hovered. Brielle saw him. "Grant," she said, not loudly, but sharp enough. "Don't undermine me in my own home." His hand stopped. I saw the moment. I will never forget it. My son's father looked at the empty plate, then at his wife, then at the ground, and he put his hand down. That was the almost moment. That was the moment some part of me stopped waiting for Grant to become brave in time. Miles looked up at Brielle. "Do I get one?" The yard did not go silent right away. Children were still talking. Someone laughed near the cooler. A balloon snapped loose from the fence and banged once against the canopy pole. Brielle bent slightly, smiling as if she were explaining table manners. "You're a guest here, Miles, not really family." Then the silence came, not all at once, in pieces. Keisha stopped opening her son's juice box. Lena turned from the side gate. Grant's face changed, but not enough. Raymond's glass paused halfway to his mouth. Miles stared at Brielle. His lower lip trembled once. He pressed it tight. That was worse than crying. He was trying to be good while someone broke something in him. I crossed the yard and knelt in front of him. "Look at me," I said softly. Not at the table, at me. His eyes found mine. "I'm hungry," he whispered. "I know, baby. Did I do something wrong?" I put my hands on his shoulders, covering the place where Grant's hands had been during the song. "No, you did nothing wrong." Behind me, Brielle said, "June, please don't turn this into something." I did not turn around yet. Miles's face was red. His crown had slipped over one eyebrow. Lena appeared beside us with a bottle of water and a clean napkin. She did not make a speech. She crouched low, held the water out to Miles, and said, "Theo saved you a seat by the fence if you want a minute." Miles looked at me for permission. I nodded. "I'll be right there." Theo, who had apparently understood enough, waved from the fence with his own untouched cake plate. "You can have half of mine," he called. Brielle let out a small laugh. "That isn't necessary." Lena looked at her. "It is now." That was the first sentence anyone said in that yard that made Brielle look uncertain. Miles walked with Lena to the fence. I stood up slowly. My hands were shaking. I folded the clean napkin Lena had given me once, then again, because my hands needed something to do besides become fists. Grant came toward me. "June," he said under his breath, "let's not make a scene." I looked at him. The man had watched his son be denied cake at his own birthday party, and his first fear was the scene. "Grant," I said, "your son is crying." He's sensitive. That word. Sensitive. Adults love that word when they do not want to say injured. Brielle stepped closer, still holding the cake knife. There was blue frosting on her thumb. "I know this feels emotional," she said, "but this is exactly why we need clearer boundaries. Miles is part of your home and visits ours. That doesn't mean every household ritual revolves around him. It is his birthday party, I said. Our party for him, she corrected. In our home. Keisha made a small sound. Not quite a laugh, not quite disbelief. Brielle heard it and straightened. I'm sorry, she said to the parents around us, raising her voice just enough. This is a private co-parenting matter. Unfortunately, June struggles with transitions. There it was, the old move. Take the harm, rename it conflict, and make the witness uncomfortable enough to look away. Grant rubbed his forehead. Brielle planned a beautiful day, he said. Can we all just calm down? Raymond had not moved. He sat under the canopy, glass in hand, gray envelope beside him, watching his son with an expression I had never seen before. Not anger exactly, something colder than anger, something finished. Brielle turned to Miles, who was sitting by the fence now with Theo. Miles, sweetie, nobody is excluding you. We just have different rules in this household. Lena stood behind the boys. Her arms were folded. You skipped his name on the bags, she said. Brielle blinked. Excuse me? The bags, Lena said. Every child has one except him. Parents looked toward the table. Brielle smiled tightly. His birthday experience was the party itself. The goodie bags are for guests. I saw Miles hear that too. Guests got bags. But he was a guest, not family. He was whatever Brielle needed him to be to make sure he received less. I walked to my purse. Grant followed me. What are you doing? Getting what I brought. June, don't. I looked at him then. Really looked. His shirt was untucked on one side. He had frosting on his wrist. He looked nervous, irritated, embarrassed. He did not look ashamed enough. Don't what? I asked. Don't make this legal. Brielle laughed from behind him. Legal? Over cake? That was her mistake. Not the first one, not the cruelest, but the one that opened the door. I did not answer. I took the folded invitation from my bag and held it in my hand. I did not take out the emergency contact form yet. Brielle saw the paper and rolled her eyes. Oh, for heaven's sake, this is what I mean. She brought paperwork to a child's party. A few parents shifted. Someone gathered a toddler closer. The wind lifted one corner of the tablecloth and dropped it again. Raymond stood. He did not rise quickly. He put one hand on the arm of the chair and pushed himself up like a man whose knees had earned their complaints. Then he set his glass on the table. The sound was small. Everyone heard it. Brielle, he said. His voice was not loud. It carried anyway. She turned toward him, relief flashing across her face for half a second. She thought he was going to help her. I saw it. Grant saw it too. Raymond? Brielle said, softening instantly. I'm sorry you're seeing this. We were trying to do something healthy. And June. He lifted one finger. She stopped. Who was this party for? He asked. Brielle's smile held, but the edges thinned. It was for the family, to celebrate Miles in a broader sense. Raymond looked at the cake table. Who blew out the candles? Miles, obviously. Who was invited as the birthday child? Raymond, I don't understand why. Who was invited as the birthday child? He repeated. The yard stayed quiet. Brielle looked at Grant. Grant swallowed. Dad, maybe we can talk inside. No, Raymond said. We'll talk where she said it. Brielle's cheeks flushed. I have done nothing wrong, she said. I paid for this party. I planned this party. And in my house, I decide how things are handled. June doesn't get to come here and police my family. There it was, in my house. My family, police. Raymond looked at me. June, he said, do you have the invitation? I stepped forward and placed it on the cake table, beside the half-cut cake and the stack of unused plates. Brielle gave a short laugh. An invitation proves I invited her. Congratulations. I said nothing. Raymond took reading glasses from his cardigan pocket, unfolded them, and looked at the paper. Read the second line, he said to Grant. Grant did not move. Raymond looked up. Read it. Grant stepped closer. His eyes dropped to the page. His voice came out flat. We'd love to have you attend Miles's official birthday celebration Saturday at our home. Raymond nodded. And the next part. Grant's jaw tightened. Cake, snacks, and goodie bags will be provided for all kids attending. All kids, Raymond said. Brielle crossed her arms. That was general wording. You're all being ridiculous. Raymond reached down and picked up the gray envelope. My heart started beating harder. At that point, I still did not know what was inside. I only knew from his face that something had ended for him before he ever opened it. He unwound the string slowly. Brielle watched the envelope with confusion first, then irritation. "Raymond, what is that?" He removed a stapled packet and a folded receipt. "This," he said, placing the receipt beside my invitation, "is the vendor invoice for the cake, food, canopy, and party supplies." Brielle's mouth opened. Raymond tapped one line with his finger, "Paid by me." Memo line, "Miles Whitaker, 7th birthday." The yard shifted. You could people understanding in real time. Brielle looked at Grant. "You told him?" Grant's face had gone pale. Raymond said, "Grant asked me to help. He said Mus was tight because the household was trying to make Miles feel included." Keisha removed her sunglasses from her head and held them in one hand. Lena looked down at Miles, who was watching from the fence with Theo's shoulder pressed against his. Raymond turned to Brielle again. "You used money I gave for my grandson's birthday to feed every child here except my grandson." "That is not what happened," Brielle said quickly. "He had the party, he had games, his attention. June is twisting this." I kept my voice quiet. "Brielle, did you tell him he was a guest?" "I said he needs to understand he doesn't live here full-time." "That is not what I asked." Her eyes narrowed. "Do not interrogate me." Raymond looked toward the parents. "Did anyone hear what was said?" Nobody moved at first. I understood. People do not want to become part of a family's fracture. They want to go home and say, "That was awkward," while loading children into car seats. Then Keisha Bell stepped forward. She did not make it dramatic. "I heard it," she said. She said, "You're a guest here, Miles. Not really family." Brielle turned on her. "You misheard me." Keisha shook her head. "No, I didn't." A second mother, one I knew only as Ava's mom, spoke from near the drink table. "I heard it too." Brielle's face changed. For the first time that day, she looked less like a hostess and more like someone trapped in a room she had built. Grant said, "Okay, people are upset. Things got phrased badly." Raymond looked at him. "No," he said. "Things got clear." Grant flinched. Raymond pulled another document from the envelope. It had a cover letter clipped to the front. I saw a law office name across the top, but could not read it from where I stood. "Grant," Raymond said, "you asked me to come today ready to discuss transferring the house." Grant closed his eyes. Brielle went completely still. A few parents looked at each other. This was no longer just uncomfortable. It was private information made public because Brielle had dragged private cruelty into public view first. Raymond continued, "You told me your household was stable. You told me Miles was loved here. You told me June had been exaggerating because she was lonely and bitter." My throat tightened, but I did not look at Grant. Raymond's voice stayed even. "I came with preliminary papers, unsigned. I wanted to see the family you said you had built." Brielle whispered, "Raymond." He looked at her. "You said in your house you decide who counts." She took one step toward him. I was upset. "I didn't mean." "You meant it when he was hungry," Raymond said. That sentence landed harder than if he had shouted. Miles's crown had slipped into his lap. Theo was sitting beside him, still holding the half piece of cake he had not eaten. Raymond placed the unsigned document back into the envelope. "I will not transfer this house to a man who lets his son be treated like an inconvenience. And I will not leave it in the care of a woman who calls my grandson a guest while spending his birthday money." Brielle's eyes filled suddenly, but not in the way Miles had. Hers were angry tears, cornered tears. You can't punish an entire household over one misunderstanding. Raymond looked at Sloane, who was standing behind her mother, with frosting on her fingers and confusion in her face. His expression softened for the first time. The children are not being punished. Then he looked at Grant. The adults are being recorded accurately. Grant's shoulders dropped. He looked at the receipt, then at the invitation, then at me, and finally, I think he understood. Not what he had done. I wish I could say that. I think he understood what it was going to cost him. Brielle reached for the receipt, but Raymond placed his hand on it. "No, it has my information on it. It has my payment on it." Grant said, "Dad, please, we can fix this." Raymond turned to him. "You had a plate in your hand." Grant's mouth shut. That was the quietest accusation of the afternoon. I looked at my son. He was no longer crying. That worried me more. He was watching adults the way children watch weather, trying to learn which direction danger moves. I walked over to him and knelt again. "We're going to go soon," I said. He nodded. "Can Theo come?" Lena answered before I had to. "Theo's going to walk you to the car." Brielle heard that and snapped back into motion. "No one is leaving," she said. "This is absurd. The kids haven't finished games." One of the fathers near the cooler picked up his child's jacket. "I think we're done." Another parent began collecting shoes from near the bounce net. A mother whispered, "Come on, honey," and guided her daughter toward the gate. That was how the room emptied, except it was a yard, not with one dramatic exit. With parents deciding one by one that whatever Brielle was performing was no longer something they wanted their children standing inside. Brielle watched them go, her face tight with disbelief. "Seriously," she said, "you're all taking her side?" Keisha paused at the gate. "I'm taking the side of the 7-year-old without cake," she said. Then she left. I still had not raised my voice. I walked back to the table and picked up my invitation. Then, because I knew this was the moment and hated that it had to be, I took the white envelope from my purse and placed it beside the receipt. Grant saw it. "What is that?" "A copy of the school contact change request Brielle submitted in February." Bristle's face drained. "I never submitted anything improper." I opened the envelope and slid the copy out. I did not read the whole thing. I did not need to. I pointed to the notes line. Grant leaned in. His lips moved silently over the words. "Non-household child." Raymond looked at the line, his face closed. Grant turned to Brielle. "What is this?" She looked from him to me, then back. "I was trying to streamline communication. June overwhelms everyone. You said that yourself." Grant said nothing. I almost felt sorry for him then, but only in the distant way you feel sorry for someone standing in a hole with the shovel, still in his hand. Brielle pointed at me. "You kept that for months? That is insane. I work with records," I said. I kept a record. For the first time all afternoon, Brielle seemed to understand the difference. Raymond took out his phone. "I'll be making a statement to June's attorney if she needs one." Grant's head came up. "Attorney?" I folded the contact form and put it back in the envelope. "Yes," I said. "June, come on." The fake softness came into his voice then. I knew it well. It was this tone he used when consequences got close enough to touch. "This got out of hand," he said. "We don't need courts. We're still family." Miles was standing beside me now, holding the blue crown against his stomach. I looked at Grant. "You were family when he asked for cake." Grant's eyes flickered. Brielle stepped in front of him. "We were only trying to teach him that different homes have different rules." "June, you're making him fragile by treating every disappointment like trauma." Miles pressed closer to my side. Raymond spoke before I could. "Do not diagnose the child you just humiliated." Brielle recoiled as if he had slapped the table. Sloane started crying then, a small, frightened cry. Brielle turned, irritated at first, then seemed to remember people were still watching and pulled her daughter against her. "It's okay, baby," she said loudly. "Grown-ups are being unfair to Mommy." That was the last thing I needed to hear. I put my hand on Miles's back. "We're leaving." Grant reached for my arm. He did not grab me hard, just touched my sleeve, the way he used to when he wanted to delay a conversation until I was too tired to have it. I looked at his hand. He let go. "June," he said. "Please don't do this in front of everyone." I looked around. Most guests had left. Lena waited by the gate with Theo. Raymond stood near the cake table. Keisha was gone, but I could see her car still at the curb, brake lights glowing as she buckled Marcus in. "You invited everyone to watch him be included," I said. "They saw what happened." Grant swallowed. Brielle's voice sharpened again. "Fine, leave. But don't expect us to chase you every time you storm off." I picked up Miles's backpack from the chair. Then I looked at her and said the sentence I had not planned. "You called him a guest, Brielle. Guests leave." I did not say it loudly. I did not need to. Raymond closed his eyes for a second. Grant looked down. Brielle's mouth opened, then closed. Miles took my hand. We walked through the side gate. Lena and Theo followed us to my car. The wind caught the blue crown and Miles clutched it tighter. At the curb, Theo handed Miles the half piece of cake wrapped badly in a napkin. "I didn't bite it," Theo said. Miles looked at it. Then he looked at Theo. "Thanks. It was such a small word for such a large kindness." Lena touched my shoulder once. "I can write down what I saw," she said. I nodded. Because if I tried to say thank you right then, I would cry in a way that would scare Miles. Raymond came out last. He walked slowly down the driveway with the gray envelope under his arm. Grant followed him halfway, talking fast. I could not hear every word, but I heard misunderstanding, overreaction, and family business. Raymond stopped near the mailbox. "This became my business when my grandson went hungry at a party I paid for," he said. Grant looked over at me, embarrassed that I had heard. "Good." Raymond came to Miles's door and bent slightly. "Buddy," he said, "I am sorry." Miles looked at him through the open window. "Are you mad at me?" Raymond's face changed. It seemed to age in 1 second. "No," he said, "not at you, never at you." Miles nodded, but I could tell he was storing the answer somewhere deep, where children keep words they need but do not fully trust yet. Raymond looked at me. "I'll call you tonight," I said, "okay." Then I drove away. For the first 3 minutes, nobody spoke. The crown sat in Miles's lap, bent almost flat now. In the rearview mirror, I watched him smooth one silvers with his thumb over and over. At a red light, he said, "Mom?" "Yes." "Am I a guest at Dad's?" The light turned green. I drove through it before answering because I needed my voice to behave. "You are his son," I said. "No one gets to vote on that." He looked out the window, but she did. I gripped the steering wheel. "Yes," I said. She tried. He was quiet after that. I did not take him straight home. I stopped at a diner 3 blocks from our apartment, the one with red vinyl booths and pancakes all day. We sat in booth 12 because Miles liked the number 12. The waitress, Donna, knew us from occasional Sunday breakfasts. "Well, hello there, birthday man," she said, seeing the crown in his hand. "Rough day for the royal family." Miles gave her a tired smile. "A little." Donna did not ask me what happened. She brought him chocolate milk with extra whipped cream and a plate of fries before we ordered. "On the house," she said. I almost lost it over the fries. Not the receipt, not the documents, not Grant's silence. Fries. Sometimes kindness breaks through because it does not ask for a statement first. Miles ate slowly. He did not want cake. He asked for grilled cheese, then took only 3 bites. I let him. I had learned that after a child is humiliated, hunger and shame can sit too close together. My phone buzzed 17 times while we sat there. "Grant, please, Dad is furious. Grant, Brielle is crying. Grant, this is getting blown up. Grant, you need to answer. Grant, Miles needs both households. Grant, don't weaponize this." Then Brielle, in the group thread she had created for the party, "I hope you're proud of yourself. You ruined a child's birthday." I stared at that message. A child's birthday, not my child, not Miles's birthday. A child's birthday, as if he had become generic the moment naming him made her guilty. I screenshotted it. That was when I noticed Grant had deleted one of his earlier texts in the thread, the one where he had said his dad wanted to help pay because Miles deserves a real party here too. But I had printed it Friday. I looked across the booth at Miles, who was drawing roads in ketchup with a fry. That printout would matter. Raymond called at 7 that evening. Miles was in the bath, talking quietly to 2 plastic boats. "I spoke with my attorney," Raymond said. His voice sounded worn out. "I'm sorry," I said. "I know this hurts you too. It should hurt Grant more than it does." I sat at the kitchen table with my folder open. The blue crown lay beside it, drying from where Miles had splashed bathwater on it. Raymond continued, "The house is mine, fully. Grant pays utilities and a reduced rent." I had agreed to begin transferring ownership over 3 years if he could show stability. Today was supposed to be a conversation after the party. I closed my eyes. Brielle didn't know. I believe Grant let her think it was already decided. Of course he had. Raymond sighed. "That does not excuse her. It explains some of the performance." "Raymond, I don't want Miles used in a fight over property. He won't be. I'm not giving you the house. I'm not buying loyalty." I am telling you that Grant and Brielle no longer get to use my silence as furniture. I looked at the crown. Thank you. I'll write down everything I saw. I'll include the prior incidents I personally observed. You should speak to your attorney about custody conditions. I will. There was a pause. June? Yes, I should have stood sooner. I thought of Miles on the front step, the air mattress, the pancakes, the birthday table. Yes, I said quietly, you should have. He accepted it. I know. That mattered too, not because it erased anything, but because he did not ask me to comfort him for realizing it late. The following Monday, I took a personal day. I dropped Miles at school with his regular backpack and no crown. His teacher, Ms. Alvarez, met him at the door like she always did, but her eyes flicked to me. She knew enough from the office whisper network to be gentle. Morning, Miles, she said. We saved the attendance folder for you today since you were out Friday afternoon. Miles's shoulders lifted a little. Really? Birthday captain gets a makeup day. He looked at me. I nodded. He walked into the classroom holding the folder with both hands. I went to my car and cried for 6 minutes. Then I drove to my attorney's office. Her name was Anita Rowe, and she had handled my divorce with the calm exhaustion of someone who had watched too many adults confuse custody with winning. Her office was on the second floor of a brick building, between a dentist and a tax preparer. She listened without interrupting while I told her about the party. When I finished, she looked at the documents spread across her desk. The invitation, the screenshot of Brielle's message, the emergency contact form, my custody calendar, Raymond's written statement, emailed that morning, Lena's statement, Keisha's statement, which arrived at 9:14 and said plainly, I heard Mrs. Whitaker tell Miles he was a guest, and not really family, after he was not served cake at his own party. Anita took off her glasses. This is not about cake, she said. No. This is about a pattern of emotional exclusion, interference with school communication, and father's failure to protect during custodial time. Hearing it in legal language did not make it less painful. It made it hold still long enough to act on. We'll request a modification, she said. Structured communication. No school contact authority for stepmother. Clarified food, sleeping, and supervision expectations. Possibly a right of first refusal if father is unavailable. We'll use the documented canceled overnights too. I nodded. June, she said, do you understand that Grant is going to say you are overreacting? He already has. And Brielle will likely say you're jealous. She already implied it. And some people will ask why you didn't act sooner. That one landed. I looked at the table. Anita's voice softened, but not too much. I liked that about her. You're acting now. I signed the retainer update. When I got back to the school office the next day, Mrs. Henson placed a sealed envelope on my desk. Updated internal note, she said. Until legal clarification, only legal parents may alter records or pick up permissions. Brielle Whitaker has no independent authority in our system. I looked at the envelope. Thank you. Mrs. Henson nodded. Children should not have to depend on adult moods for basic safety. I put the envelope in my file. That afternoon, Grant called 4 times. I did not answer. I sent one message through the parenting app Anita told me to use. All custody communication will go through this app going forward. Miles will be available for calls at 7 on Tuesdays and Thursdays. Weekend exchanges will follow the current order unless modified in writing. Brielle is not to contact the school regarding Miles. Grant replied 11 minutes later. Wow, so this is who you are now. I stared at the message and felt something strange. Not anger, relief, for years. I had been afraid that if I stopped softening myself, Grant would decide I was difficult. But there it was in writing. He already had. All my softness had only made his life easier, not my character clearer. I did not answer. Brielle tried texting me separately that night. Mother to mother, I hope you understand how damaging it is for children to see adults divided. Sloan has been sobbing. You owe her an apology too. I blocked her number and sent the message to Anita. The next week was ugly in small ways. Grant's mother called and left a voicemail saying, Your generation makes everything official. In my day we handled family privately. I saved it. Grant's sister sent a paragraph about how Brielle had a strong personality but a good heart. I did not respond. A parent from the party messaged me privately to say she was sorry she did not speak up. I thanked her and did not tell her it was fine, because it had not been fine. Raymond came by Thursday evening with a small paper bag from a bakery. Not a cake, 4 cupcakes. 1 chocolate with blue sprinkles for Miles. Miles opened the door and froze. Raymond held up the bag. "I thought maybe we could try dessert again," he said. Miles looked at me. I said, "It's up to you." Miles stepped aside. Raymond came in like someone entering a church after breaking a window. Careful, quiet, carrying remorse without making it the child's job. We ate cupcakes at my small kitchen table. Raymond asked Miles about school, about maps, about whether Theo still laughed with his whole body. He did not mention Brielle. He did not mention the party until Miles did. "Grandpa?" "Yes, buddy. Do I have to go back there?" Raymond looked at me first. He did not answer over me. I said, "The adults are working on new rules to keep you safe and comfortable." Miles frowned. "But do I?" "Not this weekend," I said. "Your dad agreed to a visit at the park with Grandpa there." Grant had not exactly agreed. Anita had strongly suggested it after Raymond told Grant he would not be discussing housing while Miles's situation was unresolved. But Miles did not need the adult mechanics. Raymond said, "I'll be there the whole time." Miles considered success. "Can we bring Theo?" "Maybe not this time," I said. He nodded, accepting disappointment like a child who had gotten too practiced at it. Then Raymond reached into his cardigan pocket and pulled out a small compass, brass-colored, and scratched. "This was mine when I was about your age," he said. "It doesn't tell you everything, just helps you know which way you're facing." Miles took it carefully. "Can I keep it?" "Yes." I almost told Raymond not to give him things out of guilt. Then I saw Miles turn it in his palm. Curious for the first time all week, and I stayed quiet. Not every gift is a bribe. Some are an apology trying to learn manners. The temporary custody hearing happened 3 weeks later in a courthouse hallway that smelled like floor polish and burnt coffee. Grant arrived with Brielle, even though Anita had told his attorney that Brielle's presence would not help. Brielle wore a navy dress and pearl earrings, like she was attending a parent-teacher conference where she expected to win. Grant looked exhausted. He tried to speak to me before we went in. "June, can we just talk for 5 minutes?" I looked at Anita. She said, "Anything you need to say can go through counsel." Brielle laughed under her breath. "Of course." I looked at her once, then looked away. That was new for me. Not the silence. I had always been quiet. The difference was that I no longer used silence to protect her. In the courtroom, Anita did not dramatize the party. She presented the timeline. Canceled overnights, Miles' statements. The emergency contact attempt. The birthday invitation. Witness statements. Raymond's affidavit. The vendor receipt. Grant's attorney tried to frame it as an unfortunate blended family miscommunication. The judge, a woman with silver hair and a voice like a closed door, looked down at the paper. She told the child he was not really family at his own birthday party. Grant's attorney hesitated. "That is one witness's interpretation." Anita said, 3 witnesses heard the statement. One is father's own parent. The judge looked at Grant. "Did you correct your wife?" Grant opened his mouth, closed it. "No, Your Honor." Brielle touched his sleeve. He pulled his arm away just slightly. I saw it. So did Anita. The temporary order was not dramatic, but it was real. Parenting communication through the app only. Brielle removed from all school contact and pickup authorization. Grant's parenting time continued, but with conditions. Appropriate sleeping arrangement. Meals provided without distinction between children. No disparaging statements about household status. And Raymond approved as a temporary exchange supervisor for the next several visits. The court also ordered both parents to use a shared written schedule and stopped last-minute changes except emergencies. It was not a movie ending. Nobody gasped. Nobody clapped. But paper can be powerful when people have used vagueness as a weapon. Afterward, in the hallway, Brielle approached me while Grant spoke with his attorney. Her pearls were slightly crooked. "I hope you're happy," she said. I kept walking. She followed. You have no idea what you've done to our home. I stopped beside a bulletin board covered in mediation brochures. No, I said. I know what I stopped doing for it. She blinked. You think you won because Raymond felt guilty? He'll get over it. Families do. I looked at her then. Maybe the old June would have explained. Maybe she would have said, I don't want to win. Maybe she would have tried to make Brielle understand Miles is hurt. But some people treat understanding like another thing they are owed. So I said nothing. That upset her more than any speech could have. Grant came over then, pale and stiff. Brielle, stop. She turned on him. Don't tell me to stop. This is because you let your ex manage everything for years and now she thinks she owns your child. Grant looked at me, embarrassed again. I did not rescue him from it. Raymond was waiting by the elevators. He had come for the hearing but sat in the back row, hands folded over his cane. When the elevator doors opened, he held them for me. June, he said, Raymond, Miles was not there. I was grateful for that. Raymond looked at Grant. I'll see you Saturday at the park. Grant's face tightened. Dad, can we talk about the house separately? Brielle's head snapped toward him. There it was. The thing under everything. Raymond looked tired. No, Dad. No, Raymond repeated. You will take care of your son because he is your son, not because a deed is waiting at the end of it. The elevator doors began to close. Raymond stepped inside with me. Through the narrowing gap, I saw Brielle turn fully toward Grant. You told me it was basically done, she said. The doors closed before he answered. I leaned against the elevator wall and exhaled. Raymond looked straight ahead. I'm sorry you had to hear that. I'm not, I said, and I meant it. By June, life had settled into a different shape. Not easy, different. Grant saw Miles on schedule. The first few visits were stiff. Raymond supervised exchanges at the park, sitting on a bench with coffee while Miles showed Grant how the compass worked. Brielle did not attend. Grant stopped asking me to pack snacks for house after Anita copied his attorney on the request and asked whether he was unable to provide food during parenting time. He learned quickly after that. The school year ended with Miles carrying home a paper bag full of broken crayons, half-used notebooks, and a certificate for most careful map reader miss. Alvarez hugged him and told him she hoped he would visit her classroom next year. At home, he placed the certificate on the fridge himself. Can we keep it there all summer? He asked. As long as you want. The blue crown stayed on his bookshelf. It was still bent, one silver star permanently creased. I asked once if he wanted me to throw it away. He shook his head. No, it's mine, so it stayed. Late in June, Lena invited us to her driveway for what she called a very unofficial popsicle evening. When we arrived, there were 2 folding tables, sidewalk chalk, a cooler, a stack of paper plates, and Theo wearing a crooked party hat, even though no one had said party. Miles looked at me. What is this? Lena came out carrying a box of cupcakes. Nothing fancy, she said. Just a few people who like you, Theo shouted. Surprise, but not scary. Keisha was there with Marcus. Donna from the diner had sent a tray of fries because Lena apparently knew everyone. Raymond stood near the garage holding a small gift bag. No rented canopy, no curated colors, no one asking the birthday boy to match the setup. Miles stood very still. Then Theo handed him the blue crown. I turned to Lena. She smiled softly. He brought it in his backpack yesterday. Said maybe tonight. Miles looked at me, asking without words. I nodded. Raymond stepped forward. May I? Miles handed him the crown. Raymond did not try to fix the bent star. He placed it on Miles's head as it was. The driveway clapped. Not loudly, just enough. Miles smiled with his whole face. That was when the breath I had been holding since April finally left my body. We ate cupcakes on paper plates. Theo and Marcus drew a giant map of the neighborhood in chalk, with my apartment labeled Home Base and the diner labeled Fry Castle. Keisha told me Marcus had asked a lot of questions after the party, and she had told him that when adults are wrong, kids are allowed to notice. Lena handed me a plastic cup of iced tea. You okay? I watched Miles laugh as Raymond pretended not to know how chalk worked. Not all the way, I said. But better, she nodded. Better was enough for that night. A few weeks later, Grant sent a message through the app. Miles says he wants to bring the crown here next weekend. Brielle thinks it may be better to leave party-related objects at your house for now. I read it twice. Then I replied, Miles may bring his own belongings between homes unless they are unsafe or prohibited by the order. The crown is his. Grant did not answer for 2 hours. Then, okay, one word, no apology, no insight, but compliance has its own sound. Raymond never transferred the house, at least not that summer. He told Grant he would revisit his estate plans after a year of consistent behavior and family counseling. Brielle stopped posting blended family content for a while. Then, months later, she posted a quote about being misunderstood by people committed to conflict. I did not screenshot it. I had enough. The last time I saw Brielle in person was at a fall soccer game. Miles had joined a recreational team that spent most games clumped around the ball, like bees. Grant came alone at first. Brielle arrived late with Sloane, wearing sunglasses though the sky was cloudy. She stood on the opposite sideline. At halftime, Miles ran to me for water, then ran to Grant, then to Raymond. He did not go to Brielle. She watched him choose his path across the grass. After the game, she approached while Miles packed his shin guards. June, she said. Her voice had that careful softness again. I looked at her. I've been doing a lot of reflecting, she said. I waited. I think we both made mistakes. There it was. Both. The word people use when they want a bridge built from your side only. I said, I'm not discussing this here. Her smile tightened, still so formal. Miles walked up beside me. He had grass stains on both knees. Brielle looked down at him. Hi, Miles. He leaned slightly against my side. Hi, she swallowed. We miss having you around. He looked confused. Not moved, confused. You do? Her face flickered. Grant, standing a few feet away, looked miserable. Miles looked up at me. I put my hand on his shoulder but did not answer for him. He turned back to Brielle. I like when Grandpa comes to the park. It was not rude. It was honest. Brielle's eyes hardened for half a second before she caught herself. That's nice, she said. Then she walked away. Grant watched her go, then looked at me. I'm trying, he said. I hope so, I says. He seemed to expect more. Comfort maybe, praise. A door left open. I zipped Miles's soccer bag. We'll see you Tuesday on the app call. That was all. On the drive home, Miles held the compass Raymond had given him. He liked to announce directions from the back seat. We're going north. Are we? Mostly. Good to know. He was quiet for a minute. Mom? Yes. Do you think Dad's house will ever feel normal? I looked at him in the mirror. He was older than 7 in some ways now, and still entirely 7 in others, with orange slices in a plastic bag on his lap. I don't know, I said, but you don't have to pretend it does when it doesn't. He nodded slowly, then he said, Our house feels normal. I blinked hard. I'm glad. He looked out the window. And Lena's driveway. Yeah, I said. Lena's driveway too. When people ask what happened after the party, they usually want the big consequences. They want to know if Brielle was humiliated, if Grant lost the house, if Raymond cut them off, if the court believed me. The answer is yes, in parts. Brielle lost the room that day. She lost the story where she was the gracious stepmother and I was the difficult ex. Grant lost the comfort of being neutral while someone hurt his child. Raymond lost the illusion that quiet concern was enough. I lost the last piece of me that still thought peace meant helping everyone avoid the truth. But Miles gained something too, not all at once, not perfectly. He gained adults who said what they saw. He gained a school record that protected him. He gained visits with clearer rules. He gained a grandfather willing to be late, but not absent forever. He gained Theo saving a seat by the fence, Lena holding a bottle of water, Keisha saying the sentence out loud, Donna bringing fries without questions, and a blue paper crown nobody was allowed to take from him again. He still asks hard questions sometimes. Children do not stop hurting just because adults finally admit who caused it. But he laughs more freely now. He eats before visits because he wants to, not because he is afraid he won't be fed. He keeps his crown on the bookshelf beside Raymond's compass. 1 points to a day that hurt him, 1 points forward. As for me, I stopped being Grant's backup system. I do not remind him of school spirit days. I do not buy gifts from him. I do not explain Brielle to teachers. I do not smooth his rough edges before they scrape his own life. I answer what the order requires. I protect my son, I keep records. Then I close the app. There is a quiet kind of freedom in letting people experience the weight of what they refuse to carry. That is one of the only lesson-shaped sentences I will allow myself, because I earned it the hard way. I still have the original invitation. It is in a folder with the receipt copy, the court order, and the emergency contact form, where Brielle tried to make my son official by making him smaller. Sometimes I think about throwing it away. Then I remember that documents are not the wound. They are the proof that the wound was real. The blue crown, though, stays out in the open. Last month, Miles wore it while doing homework at the kitchen table. No reason, just because he found it and wanted to. One silver star still leans to the left. "Does it look weird?" he asked. I looked at him, pencil in hand, socks mismatched, crown crooked completely himself. "No," I said. "It looks like yours." He smiled and went back to his math. That is where I want to leave him in your mind. Not at the cake table, not waiting for a plate. At my kitchen table, wearing the crown no one gets to approve, adding 2-digit numbers, safe enough to be ordinary. That's my story. A blue paper crown, 14 slices of cake, and a driveway full of people who knew exactly who the birthday boy was. If someone in your life only values you when you are useful, take this as your sign to stop auditioning for a place they keep moving. Protect the child in the room, even if that child is you. And if this story reminded you of someone who quietly showed up when it mattered, tell me about them in the comments. Sometimes the smallest witnesses are the reason the truth finally has somewhere to stand.